Okay, so let's remember where we're at. Sosa's proposed this account of knowledge where knowledge is evident true belief as opposed to justified true belief. And the question is, what does it take for something to be evident? And he looked at two options. Things can be self-evident or things can be non-self-evident. In the self-evident case, the mere correct belief in the proposition is enough to justify it. He gave examples of that. Things like where the knowledge is by introspection, or we're talking about logical knowledge. Those are good examples of self-evident propositions. The non-self-evident stuff, we want to know, how does it become evident if it's not self-evident? And Sosa has a very simple explanation that gets a little complicated in the stating. So the idea is, if there's this thing and it's evident to me, then it becomes evident to me because I have some kind of grounds for it. And if those grounds were ever just like wild-ass guesses, they wouldn't be good enough for this proposition to be evident to me. So they have to themselves either be self-evident or have further backing. And we keep going down this chain of looking at each of the things that grounds whatever I'm looking at and saying it's either self-evident or itself has grounds. And we keep going down this chain until eventually we end up at a whole layer of self-evident stuff. Once everything stops, then we have ourselves what he calls a complete epistemic explanation, or a full ground for it. We say fully ground something. Okay, so Sosa says that we're now finally in a position to answer our first main question. A proposition X is evident to someone in either of two situations. It's self-evident, or there's a set of propositions that fully grounds it. So that is, they can be arranged in this pyramid-like arrangement, and at the bottom level on each branch, we have only self-evident stuff. All of the leaf nodes are self-evident. And then he makes this annoying philosopher's point that, in fact, the self-evident case is just a special case, like the special case where all of those branches are empty. And so we're actually just saying this proposition grounds itself, fully grounds itself. Okay, fine. So the self-evident case is just a special annoying case of the non-self-evident stuff. And so we only need to understand what's going on in the non-self-evident stuff to have a full explanation. Okay, great. That's the plan. What are we going to do with it? Well, what Sosa does is first just sort of spell that all out a little bit, and he gives his own picture of the trees and whatnot, and tells you how to read the trees in full gory detail. And it's a little bit complicated to read Sosa's explanation of what's going on here. You should do so, and you should try to understand it, and you should be forgiving of yourself if you fail. And if you don't, you should be very proud of yourself. And so then here is his alternative account of knowledge once all of that stuff has been spelled out. Remember, the traditional account is S knows P if and only if it's true, S believes it, and S is justified in believing it. And now here's Sosa's alternative. He says that S knows P if and only if it is true that P, S believes that P, and there is an epistemic pyramid for S and the proposition that P. So that you have this set of sentences that fully grounds your belief that P. And the very first thing Sosa does with his shiny new account of knowledge is show that there's a problem with it. And in your very short essay, I ask you to think carefully about the problem that Sosa shows, and to, in particular, explain that basically Sosa's pointing at Gettier 2 here. So that's the very short essay prompt for this stuff. And so I'm not going to go through it anymore. You should try to write that very short essay, and that'll get you thinking through this matter. But having run into this problem, Sosa immediately suggests a solution. And the solution is that we restrict to those pyramids where everything is true. All the things, all the nodes along the way, every single sentence that occurs on all of the branches is a true sentence. And that does get you out of the problem that you think about in your very short essay. And what he does in the remainder of this section is just think through an example from Lair that would be a problem if we didn't include this thing. And then that would still be a problem if we didn't adopt sort of a Dretskian story, a Dretski-inspired story about how justification works. Okay, so that takes us through to the end of the section. I'm now going to move on to thinking about section 2 in the next video. Thanks.